This is a sweet panel and a sweet audience. A lot of folks here. Did y'all watch the State of the Union last night? Not many of you. Some of you. I didn't. I played basketball at a game, so I missed it. Did they talk about customer experience or user experience at all, or no?
Seriously?
They didn't. Then that's what we're here for. So
no pressure.
No pressure. We can do as good or better job, I think, anyway. We have a lot to talk about, but I want to just let our panelists talk a little bit about who they are and then who their customers are, because we have a wide variety. We have a member of the intelligence community whose customers are far different than, say, you and I, who are IRS customers, and we also have a representative who has internal government customers. So it'll be a good panel, a lot of fun. Have questions? I'll open it later. I can't see all y'all, but just start, looking at me like intently if you want me to start calling on you, and I will do so, but later on. We'll start with Michael and just, we'll start with you, Corey.
Okay.
Tell us about what you're doing and who your customers are.
Yeah, absolutely. Morning, everybody. My name's Corey Robb. I lead the Design and Needs Analysis Group within the Office of Geoint Services at the National Geospatial Intelligence Agency. It's quite a mouthful. So let me tell you really quickly about what NGA does. We serve both the intelligence and defense communities. We provide GIS, mapping, satellite imagery, data and services to both the defense and intelligence communities, but also we get very heavily involved in disaster response and recovery efforts, and also some humanitarian efforts as well too, that people don't often focus on. It's all about understanding everything that you can about a point or a place on the earth, if I had to sum it up. The office that I'm in very specifically, Geoint Services, we provide digital products, digital software to mainly our defense and intelligence customers. And I'm have the pleasure of working with a really talented group of people to lead the design effort there as a part of a product team across functional product team.
Hey everybody, Mike Lynn, Chief of User Experience and Design at the Internal Revenue Service. So what we're trying to do here...
Hey. Y'all love him. It's tax season.
Thank you, Frank. So public service announcement. We are officially in tax season. Be sure to file your taxes. But that's kind of what we're trying to do here in our group. We're trying to make that experience. We're not going to kid ourselves and say we're going to make this experience pleasurable, right? But we can make it less painful, a little bit more streamlined. And so that's what we're trying to do. We're looking at all different types of digital channels and other channels outside of that to improve that end-to-end experience. And in terms of our customers, can I get a show of hands? Actually, everybody raise their hands. Yeah. You are our customers. And that's it from me.
I'm Chad Sheridan. Let's see, my official job is CIO at the Risk Management Agency. My second job is to help bring 3 agencies in the farm production and conservation mission area together for a common IT piece. And the other job I work on is delivering a common customer portal for our common users. So back about a year ago, the Secretary has made it very clear that he wants to drive USDA to be the most focused, customer-focused agency in the federal government. To that end, he created our mission area to combine the Natural Resources Conservation Service, the Farm Service Agency, and the Risk Management Agency, because we share about 70% of common customers across the country. There's 23,000 people in our 3 agencies with over 2,300 offices around the country. And we serve all farmers, ranchers, foresters, conservationists. And so part of my role is to drive improved customer outcomes through both the digital experience for the customer and, more importantly, since most of our customers get their services by interacting with our employees, giving a better digital experience to our employees so that they can deliver that delightful customer experience. While we'd love to have more self-service capabilities, and that's what we're going to do, the reality is people like to work with USDA people that are out in the fields, that are in their homes. These are people they know, they trust, they interact with in their communities, and so we've got to give them the tools that makes them able to deliver delightful customer experience.
Hi everyone, I'm Simcha Tsubaki Boggan. I work for the General Services Administration, GSA. We are currently standing up a Centers of Excellence office at the Technology Transformation Service at GSA. Right now, we are standing up 5 Centers of Excellence, Customer Experience, which is the one I'm leading. We are also standing up a Contact Center, Center of Excellence, a Digital Service Analytics Center of Excellence, and Infrastructure Optimization, and...
Data center.
Yes, thank you, data center. So data center optimization and then cloud adoption. So the idea, it's a new approach. We're in the process of standing up the Centers of Excellence, and the idea is to work very closely with an agency and embed there for several months, work with them hand in hand, and co-create strategy, and then be a part of that implementation process throughout. But it's a very engaged group where we have a lot of buy-in. Our first pilot agency we're working with is Chad's agency, USDA. Working very
plug
closely.
It if you didn't.
No, working very closely with Chad and his team at the CIO's office, but also at the Secretary's office, and all the way through to the program offices that operate all of these transactions, and service centers, and all of those in-person offices. So we are currently standing this up, but what we really want to do is really help drive that mission of Secretary Perdue and really help make it a very customer-centric agency. And in order to do that, we want to really help drive strategy around how do we create this culture, how do we, do certain work in certain areas around transaction, around in-person, and really bring a human-centered design approach to that office.
Yeah, and staying with you. So that's a really interesting development. That it's one of the big things the administration has pushed in the last year, right?
Yes, and it was established, and I missed this, but it was established from our Federal Acquisitions Office at GSA in partnership with the Office of American Innovation at the White House.
And then if it goes well, since you're sort of like the pilots, you guys are the pilots for this. If it goes well, you can see this going to other agencies in terms of the goals would be modernizing how you do UX, customer experience, within USDA.
Correct, yes. And it's under the umbrella of IT modernization. So with a CX focus, which is really great, and it's really human focused, is that there is an underlying part to the implementation process where there will ultimately be IT modernization as part of that. But from a human-centered design approach, we're kind of putting technology aside as we're kind of coming in, really understanding the human interaction, the farmer's interaction, what do they want, what do they need out of all of the agencies, 200 plus services that these 3 agencies that Chad had mentioned deliver. But how do we really translate it to exactly what the farmer needs?
So an easy place for us to start is, where are you guys getting ideas and best practices from? And I think NGA is a cool use case here because you don't associate the intelligence community with customer experience traditionally, right, in UX. You just have these analysts that do really
they
cool
just
stuff.
can't tell you.
What's that? Yeah,
They do, they just can't tell you.
Right. We're not dealing with the general public a lot. It's not like the IRS where everything that you do is public and every story or mess up you have is on the front page of the headlines necessarily. But it's super interesting. You guys, one thing I want to get on is you guys have an internal effort afoot to build up federal employees, bring them into NGA to do some of the things that typically contractors did before. You have a data core, a development core, and some of the job postings that I assume will come out are around user design principles and bringing in user experience experts to sort of mitigate or ease that analyst job and then running intelligence up the chain. So talk a little bit about that. It's super cool. It's just started in the last really 2 months, earnestly. You guys have a new guy, a chief data scientist you hired out of California, out of Silicon Valley, and you and him and others are leading the way and bringing in these folks.
Yep. So you touched on very quickly the data and dev core that we have been very actively involved in sort of plussing up. We're looking at very innovative ways to bring those individuals in, partnering with some nonprofits as sort of an incubator for the talent, and then bringing them in at different levels, having them work at an unclassified level while their clearance paperwork goes through. So that's dev and data core. We're also looking now, very strong effort to bring product managers into the federal government. So these are people that know what a good product is. They're not necessarily domain experts. They might not know about all the different phenomenologies of sensors that we use, but they're people that know how to build good products and how to satisfy our customers and delight customers, like Chad was saying. And then related to that, or the third leg, are the design professionals, the folks that I have the pleasure of working with every day. And there's a couple of them actually, Chris, there's a couple of them in the audience here today. And we are, I'd say, probably not in as good of a place with the design expertise that we're trying to bring in, but we're getting to a good place where our upper level management is now bought in on the return on investment of good design. And what we mean there is building products that allow our analysts, our customers, to quickly understand the jobs that the product, the website, the product that they're looking at has to do for them, use it, and expend their brain power on more important national security issues. We don't do a good job of that right now. Hopefully I don't get in trouble for saying that. But we tend to put the complexity of the sensors and everything that we build right into the face of our users. And I feel it's my job to be that proponent of burying that complexity through good UX and design.
Where do you get ideas from? Because no one else is really doing this in the intelligence community. I interviewed the new guy coming in, and I was like, where are you guys getting, like, how did you start doing this? Because the CIA and the NSA and those other agencies that we associate in your space, they don't really have a focus on user experience, at least not with the sort of fanfare internally that you guys have. So where do you get it from? Do you get it from the rest of government? Do you go look outside to the Googles of the world? I know you're trying to hire people that work in places like that. I mean, that was a thing that he said, we're looking to get some of the best talent and bring them into government. Typically, or at least in a lot of cases I see, government ends up contracting that work out. And one of the things he said, Andy Brooks, was saying that divide between what you want as a federal employee within that directorate, whatever it may be, you know it better than a contracting shop that's not even embedded with you. And so I think they were trying to mitigate some of the issues that they were having there. But
Yep. So I think you hit on a couple different things. I want to make sure that I get to both of them. Let me first talk about where do we get the ideas from. I think we have a group of a smaller group of individuals at NGA, call it a grassroots group, that is very passionate about design, and are doing their best to be the proponents for bringing that in the building. But we're actively seeking out training. We're reading books. We're doing all numbers of workshops, trainings, education to try to bring our core competency in design up to speed. So you talk about UX Week, Google Ventures Design Sprint book, the one's written by Jake Knapp. There's, you name it. We're trying to devour that information in order to try to put it to use fairly quickly. Let me talk real quickly about going after the talent too. What we're finding in our conversations with people, like when we attend these conferences, is that there is a growing unsatisfaction with public sector work. People that are they're leveraging their design expertise only to maybe squeeze another penny or so out of somebody to get somebody to convert or sign up for an account on a website, and that's not necessarily that satisfying for them. So our angle is we have tough national security problems that those individuals can come and help us solve. And we're trying to build the culture at a ground level that will allow those people to come in and be successful.
So if you guys anyone's looking for a job, you want to go in the IC.
www.nga.mil, not .gov. You might head off to the National Governors Association or the Association Gallery of Art, but it's nga.mil.
Nice. I love it when I can plug stuff.
Thank you. The public affairs folks will be very happy.
Well, anything we can do to ease their lives.
Yeah.
Although they don't ease mine when I need a fast response.
It's not about you, Frank.
It's not. It's always about me. So, Michael, let's go to you. We were just talking in the green room backstage, and there was something. I would love to just ask the audience: how many of you ever called the IRS? Would you wager a guess how much it costs taxpayers when you do that? Just curious. Throw out a number, anyone.
56
cents.
You're close. So right now, for us to field a phone call, on average it costs $41 per call. To take that a step further, for us to help somebody in person at one of our tax assistance centers, it's about $67 on average per visit.
Let that sink in, right? You're dealing with an entire U.S. population, tax-paying population, over 100 million customers, right?
Absolutely,
right.
Absolutely. So, that's a huge cost for us as an agency, right? And so one of our goals for digital transformation is to identify those high volume, low complexity tasks and move them from traditional channels such as the phone line, in person, and move them online. And a couple of different ways we've been doing that. We have an online account right now, which allows you as a taxpayer to go in and check your balance and make payments. We have different payments features as well. So one of the top questions that we receive every single year is right now during tax filing season, hey, I know a refund's coming my way. Where's my refund? What's the status? And so the refund status as a capability is something we've been pushing for a couple years now. Right now we make it available to 3 different channels. You can go to irs.gov, go to the Where's My Refund app and get your refund status right there. You can download our mobile app, Iris to Go, get refund status there as well. And we've also recently partnered with Intuit and H&R Blocks and other tax software companies of the world to provide that as an API through their software. And so that has gone up to the tune of 279 million online refund requests. And so those are millions of calls we're diverting from our phone lines at $41 per call, which is a massive savings for our agency.
Right. I think that really puts it into context right there. Like that's a really crappy challenge you have to deal with, but like that's good. Progress is good. What are some of the techniques you're using to make sure that these apps and websites that you roll out, and you did just roll out a new website. Your website looks prettier than it used to, and there's a lot less crap when you go to it. No offense.
Excellent
Looks
question.
great. Looks great. Looks like I'm just going in house that
iris.gov, what can I say? We're one of the top visited government websites out there. If anybody here has been to analytics.usa.gov, it gives you stats on all .gov websites, right? And throughout the course of the year, we're usually top 5, top 10. Right now, because it's filing season, we're number 1. Number 1 for visits.
You guys are like number 1 through 5. A lot of times, you guys, all your different channels are like up there.
Where's My Refund is usually up there in top 5. So yeah, we're up there. And to give you a little bit of scale, last year in 2017, we had 496 million visits, 2.2 billion page views. 41% of those were mobile users, right? And up until just recently, you talk about our new website. Before our new website was launched, our site wasn't mobile friendly, it wasn't responsive.
I remember.
And so that meant 41% of our visitors.
I'm not picking
He said he was going to be nice.
Yeah, I know. Come on, what's going on? But 41% of our users came in and they had to do the whole pinch and squint dance, or they had to log off and get on from their laptop just to get key information pertaining to their taxes, right? Mm-hmm. And so that wasn't the best experience. And we've been working on this for a while now. Back in August, we relaunched the irs.gov website. We call it a refresh. There's a couple of new things that we brought out here. We have a new content management system powered by open source Drupal 8. We have a new UI that is mobile friendly and responsive. And then we have a new search engine, which is Apache Solar, which allows us to do faceted search, right? So if you're used to e-commerce sites like Amazon, you can filter your search results through different categories or filters on the left. And so that allows our taxpayers to really get to the information they're looking for a lot faster. Finally, we've rolled out a content publishing model, which is brand new, that allows us to have better control over the consistency of information online. All of which is our goal to make a better experience for folks online.
And iterative development, is that a key piece of what you guys do?
Yes, it is. As an agency, traditionally, we've been very waterfall in our development. Just recently, we've adopted Agile as a methodology. We took the average time frame before now to get something to market was somewhere between 12 to 18 months plus, right? With our new Agile process, we are looking at 9 weeks. 9 weeks, 4 2-week sprints, 1 week of planning, right? And we've done this now successfully for 12 different iterations on online account. And this has allowed us really to get things to market, get things in front of real users, and test it out in the wild, if you will.
Those are really good metrics, man. That was a great 5 minutes of, damage. That was good. And I think a good example, too, it's not as if you're in a position where people are going to love paying taxes, but they can making the experience more enjoyable is important for the public persona of what you are. But then making it more intuitive and easier to use, it's just better for everybody, and it saves you guys money to do that too.
And you really hit upon it, right? Like we track feedback not only quantitatively through 4C surveys, Google Analytics, everything else, but also qualitatively. Did I say that right? Mm-hmm. Through user interviews and also reviewing reviews of our applications online. And we actually had somebody say, "Hey, man, you made this experience pleasurable." So that was huge.
Relatively speaking, I imagine a few things I would rather do, but I'm on you. Is the work that you're doing? Are you using a mixture of internal federal employees? Are you contracting a lot of it out? What's that process like? And are you buying this work from existing contracts? Are you farming new ones out? Are you buying off schedule for some of these services? What maybe?
Excellent question. And so I think all of us kind of are faced with the same challenge here, right? In the federal government, we have a lot of constraints. For us at the IRS, we touch upon a lot of sensitive data. And so all hardware and software needs to be vetted through our cybersecurity shop. And so that usually adds a good amount of lead time to get things in front of our federal employees, right? And so some of these new tools, the way we get around that is we hire folks with that expertise to supplement, if you will, our federal team. And the folks that we do hire in, we've hired from all different types of backgrounds, from federal, from outside, user experience specialists, researchers, designers, and they can kind of lead that work because they know how to talk the talk and walk the walk.
Yeah. So Chad, you guys have a new portal coming through tomorrow, right?
Yes.
Talk about that and what it's going to help you guys do.
So part and parcel with what we were doing to combine our 3 agencies into this new mission area and focus on the customer was this notion of we want to deliver a common customer portal. And I think the original vision was we're going to have really 2 threads. One thread is an informational part of the portal, a new website. The other would be a transactional portal. And as we started to get into the design effort, we realized that a traditional website was not what we wanted. And we wanted to really drive more an integrated and holistic digital experience between the website-y, if that's a word, part of what we do, the digital experience part of what we do, and more heavier CRM type activities. And so the first thing out of the gate is our new website called farmers.gov, not farmers only, but farmers.gov, with this idea of a traditional website like USDA.gov is going to be, no matter how good we make it, more about us. What we want with farmers.gov is it's about the farmers, ranchers, conservationists out in the field. So what we want to do is tailor the experience to what the farmer is going to care about. Now, what we're launching tomorrow is not a radical transformation. It's the first step in the process. So it's going to be about what's coming. It's going to be about a new office locator. It's going to be about a feedback mechanism. and ultimately start to, and also links back to each of our individual agencies. As we get towards May, which is our first launch of the transactional piece of our digital experience, we're going to start to build in an interactive calendar. We're going to start to build in more data around office location and how to contact our 2,300 plus offices around the country. It's also going to start to bring locality to bear, because farming's local and farming's personal. So we want our information to be simple. We want our information to be tailored to the person and the locality. So what I care about are the events in my area. I don't care about events in California if I'm in Iowa. I don't care about specialty crop farming if I'm a soybean farmer. Right? So we want to make sure that we can tailor that experience to local. We've heard from our customers that are telling us, hey, help me understand the step-by-step process to apply for your individual programs. Our programs are complex, right? Crop insurance is complex. Conservation technical assistance, complex. So what we want to do is build the simplicity of the information and have a very easy and seamless transition to an authenticated platform ultimately where you can conduct business in self-service, or you have a nice easy transition to, I want to make an appointment into an office. Part and parcel, the whole idea of our mission area is, historically, everything in USDA has been designed from the legislation out. So we have these siloed programs, sometimes even within individual agencies of, well, I do farm loans and I do farm programs and ARC and PLC, or I do conservation. The whole reason for our existence is to think of our business, this is where Simcha comes in, to think of our business from the customer in. It is, radical might be too strong a word, but it's definitely a different way of thinking. And so to make this ultimately successful, there's only so many things I can do as a purveyor of technology, right? I become the delivery platform for things that we have digitized already to bring into a common experience platform, things we haven't digitized. I'll give you an example of that. If you have a farm loan through the Farm Service Agency, the way to get your balance and payment information is you call the office. Now, I don't have this great data that IRS does that, God, I hope I'm not paying $41 a call, right? But you all have loans, right? How do you get your balance and payment information? You don't call your bank, you go online and you get the information. So we want to get ourselves into the 20th century there. That's an easy win. But there are some things about the digital experience we have no idea what is. So what we need is a customer experience program to help drive the backlog of work that either becomes a digital experience, which I care about, but it could change how we organize our offices. It could change how we develop our programs. And perhaps we give feedback to the Congress that, hey, if you want these programs to be more effective for the farmers, you might want to think about this legislative change, or if it's within our control, this regulatory change. So if I see the four pillars of work, it's things that are already digital that we bring into a common experience, things we haven't made digital like farm loans. It's strategic intent from the Secretary and our political leadership, and then it's really the most important pillar of backlog is what are those things, if we were to designing our programs and our experience from the customer in, that we would go work on. And hopefully that's where we need Simcha. We need our new customer experience office and our missionary to tell us these are the things that really our customers need and drive our experience and our program design from the outside in.
So farmers.gov.
Farmers.gov launches tomorrow.
Do you have a jingle as catchy as the farmersonly.com? Does anyone know that? You don't have to be lonely at farmersonly.com.
I am not authorized to have a jingle at this time.
I can only tell you that because I actually grew up on a dairy farm and I visit my parents in northern Michigan quite frequently, and every time I go there, every commercial break, it's at least every other commercial break, it's farmersonly.com, and they'll have like this dude, he's like, I'm so tired of dating city girls, and then they, girls riding horses.
Yeah, it's fconkle at farmersonly.com.
I'm not a user, or am I? I wonder what DC would be like on farmers. Probably not a lot of farmers in the audience here.
Be a tumbleweed going across the street.
But certainly of huge import for farmers all across the country who deal with you guys on a regular basis, and hopefully they'll use that portal in lieu of having to call you guys all the time, because I'm sure that will be a benefit for all.
I think that's part of our conundrum is today, if you look at the online services we have, the self-service capability, it's maybe a 1% penetration. So our customers really are currently using our people to get services. Now, part of that is cultural. A part of that is these people are in those communities, so we do absolutely want to give more self-service capability, but we can't do that without also working on what is the user experience for our 23,000 employees that deliver services, right? We've got to do both, because the reality is the delightful customer experience comes from a delightful digital experience for both the customer and our employees who deliver that experience in person.
So Simcha, you have to do a little bit of that too, right? You're going to have this external project that'll be very public, and everyone will be interested in how you improve USDA's overall customer experience. You guys have some contracts that are going to be coming up for award, and then there'll be a second phase. It'll be very interesting to see how this works. But internally, you do a lot of work too on the GSA side with call centers. You guys have customers all across the country, federal employees from almost every agency. How do you, I guess, what do you do, and how have you changed how you handle the approach to addressing those own issues internally?
So I think with my past experience, traditionally the way that the technology transformation service takes intake from other agencies is that agencies come to GSA and they ask for services, whether it's through Office of Products and Programs or 18F or Presidential Innovation Fellows, and they have been very program focused and one-offs. And I think with a lot of those one-offs, I think within the agency itself, they're able to showcase, successes and things like that. The different approach, I think, with the Centers of Excellence is that what we're piloting this year with USDA is, what if we were to just go into the agency all in, buy-in already from the secretary's level, buy-in from the CIO level, but also work very closely, as we have been already over these, several, over the past decade, at the program level. And how can we bridge that? Because a lot of the challenges that agencies face, a lot of the times, especially on the program level, is the buy-in. And how do we get the infrastructure? How do we get the money? And all of these barriers to, those challenges. And what we're hoping we can do with USDA with this pilot is really help facilitate conversations that have never been had before between parts of the agency, and really drive, a human-centered, customer-centered approach from the beginning. So right now, we're in strategy discussions at the Secretary's office, but we've brought in the CIO and we've brought in the administrators of these three agencies, to have a discussion about, what are those initiatives? Are they, customer-focused initiatives? And how do we measure that, and not really just measure how many hits you got to the website, how many, tags or how many people downloaded a form, but really focus on outcome measurements. How many people were able to actually not just obtain a loan, but have a loan? What were they able to do with that loan? Was the farmer able to get extra cattle to, be able to kind of grow their product or their produce? So we really are looking at, strategizing, throughout the agency, outcome measurements, and then also bring in a human-centered design approach. So with our team in place, we're going to work really closely on specific initiatives. So, for example, we might focus on farm loans and really dive deep into that particular area, do tremendous research around that customer base, but on a regular basis, showcase it not just to the secretary to let him know how we're doing, or the White House to keep telling them, what we're doing and how we're doing it, but also to the employees and to the farmers themselves. Here's how we're working. Here's how we're using you to co-create, some of these new ideas that we want to, pilot with you, and really get them involved. And I think, with something like farmers.gov and the portal, that we can really iterate and pilot and play with that space.
Questions? We've got a couple of mics here. First in the back, and then we got some over here. Just flagging you.
Hi, Emily Ayler with Grant Thornton. I work with a lot of rural-centered federal agencies and program offices, and it's great to hear about all the digital and the online and the web and the platform, but what if there's no broadband or slow broadband? How do you take that into account, and what are you doing to maybe address that?
So, not me directly, but certainly a huge emphasis from the Secretary, as the Secretary was the chair of the Rural Task Force, recently issued a report, and part of that report was a very heavy emphasis on increasing the penetration of rural broadband. So we actually just had a CIO council meeting at USDA where we sat down with the Secretary's point person on this. So I expect that the only way to make digital experience work for the farming community, for the rural community, is to have the ability to actually connect. That's to me, we've got to be integrally involved and help the folks that are promoting and pushing rural broadband to understand those use cases, so that it's one thing to say, hey, we need rural broadband, but if I can say, hey, I can get a better experience to deliver these programs that have these impacts, getting back to what Simcha talked about, if I can talk outcomes and say, hey, this technological advancement drives these kinds of outcomes, and we start with a baseline of data and then show how those outcomes change, whether it's through the programs we field or the fact that you've got now access to high-speed internet in your area. Now we have something that's real. You know, every time we seem to talk about tech, we tend to abstract ourselves from the mission. And so the important piece, and what I love about what we're doing at USDA, is it's all about, we keep talking IT modernization, but it's all about the mission. And if we talk about modernization without the context of what it does for the mission, that conversation does not go very far within our agencies, and it really doesn't go far with the Secretary.
And I can just add also, one of the other Secretary initiatives is really exploring and revisioning that in-person experience. And so, you know, for those folks who, you know, majority of them today go to service centers, local service centers, to get, you know, different USDA program services available to them or recommended to them, or be able to fill out a form there in person. We're going to explore that area as well, because we know that if that is the realm of, you know, service that they choose, how can we make even that more seamless, not just for them, but for the employees servicing them, you know?
Right, because if 99% of your users go in person, just make that experience better.
Exactly. You have folks today who come in to, you know, apply for a loan, and a lot of the times the service center, you know, associate will fill it out for them because it is so complicated. So, you know, what can we do even on the back end for the employee to make it better for them so that they can make it better for the farmer?
Good question. We had a couple over here. Raise your hands again. All right. We'll keep these like 45-second to a minute answers, just so that we get, because I want to get a couple more.
Hi, Nicole Callahan from Federal Student Aid. My question's for Michael. So we work for similar agencies, I would say. We both we're both charged with designing very simple experiences based on extremely complex programs. Thank you, Congress. And I think we've made leaps and bounds in simplifying the experience for customers, but I always say it doesn't matter how simple the application is if people can't get in. And so I know a huge percentage of our call volume is based on authentication issues. So how do you guys balance customer experience and cyber and security, especially when it comes to authentication?
Excellent question, and that's something we were just talking about in the back room, in a conversation we have quite often back at home base. Right? And there's always going to be that balance between user experience and security, right? They're kind of at odds. To make something more secure, it's going to take you a little bit longer to get into where you need to go. But at the IRS, you know, we're dealing with some pretty sensitive data. So we like to err on the side of caution. And so our authentication methods, our ID proofing methods are a little bit more stringent than most, and rightly so. Every day we're going back to the drawing board, working with our e-authentication team to figure out what that end-to-end experience is and how we can streamline it. But first and foremost, we're thinking about the taxpayers' security of their data.
I'd like to mention too, because we were talking about it. So at NGA, and we're dealing with national security data and information on multiple security domains, multiple security networks. And the problem that you bring up is more and more in our face. And what we realized is that the user experience isn't just about maybe the interface that we've created. It's about the very beginning to the end. And if we don't take those things into account, and if we don't think about those things, then it will mess us up. And I'm speaking from years of experience at NGA, things that aren't even our fault, quote unquote. Firewalls at a different network, PKI certs maybe that were not configured in a manner that our agency configured them in, and a whole host of other things. But it's something that I've tried to, I would love to have a user experience person in our chief information security office to balance out the need, the desire to just lock it all down and say, well, how is that lockdown going to affect our experience, to try but it's the tightrope that you walk as anybody that deals with sensitive information, user experience and security.
Wait, one more over here, and then we're kind of over time. So like, if you still got a question, raise your hand. I'll get you really fast.
Hopefully this will be fast. Building off of that, I think, Michael, you had spoken about shortening your life cycle to get to market or whatever, to roll out a new product from maybe 12 months to 9 weeks, and balancing the cybersecurity, and also knowing that broadly our environment now is that people want to give a little bit of their information to get more customized experience, like the guy from Adobe had said. How do you effectively cut off all that time? What kind of shortcuts or hacks could you explain to the rest of us? Because it's very challenging to balance the privacy constraints and the CIO shop.
Be fast.
Really quickly. So I mean, we build in cybersecurity checkpoints, user testing and validation checkpoints into everything we do. And how we streamline those nine weeks is we don't bite off more than we can chew, right? And so during elaboration phase, we identify some really small key features that we want to test, build, and then refine, and then launch. And that kind of keeps us smart with the development.
One last question.
Hey, I'm Dave Clark. I had a question specific to Simcha and Chad around how you're collaborating or co-creating with private industry to create solutions, APIs, etc.
So we look at it a couple of different ways. We obviously have existing vendors that are in, and we're using, for the first increment, mostly some existing folks on board. But part of that process, we get with our existing vendors, we get with our platform vendors. And the thing, I just having a conversation yesterday with one of our platform vendors, and I just had the ask of, bring me your experts or customers from commercial industry. So I love to use banking and insurance because that's two of the big things we do, crop insurance and farm loans. Bring me somebody that's either your platform expert in that functional space, or bring me some of your customers. I want to hear how you guys are delivering those capabilities, because customer experience, or delivering a wonderful customer experience in the federal government, is not, let's just say it's not what we've done. We're not on the forefront of that, and it's a little bit different calculus than it is in industry. My interactions with our customers are much different and lower in volume than what you would see from retail. So we've got to get those experiences in and assume that we don't yet know. And so I ask them to bring me your best that are working in these industries, so that we can understand what's happening in an area where people have existential issues. If I don't do this right, I won't exist tomorrow. We don't have that problem in the government.
The use cases. Bring them good. All right. Hey, this is fun. I wish we could do this for like another hour, because I feel like I got a lot of stuff I could ask. But thank these guys for a good job, and thanks for coming.